Welcome to Understanding Dimensions, and this is going to be part one. I'm going to split this topic into two pieces, into two separate videos, so that I can first of all talk about dimensions a little bit. Then I'm going to show you one, because believe it or not, we are moving closer and closer to the point where we're going to actually jump out into SQL Server and start to work with this stuff and build that data warehouse. First of all, understand about the dimensions. Dimensions are what give context to our measures. Now, we've already talked about fact tables. Fact tables store specific measures about specific functionalities or aspects of our business. And the dimensions or the measures are the measurable numbers of what's in the fact table, or they are the facts about the information that's in the fact table, if you want to get confused. Okay, so we've got our information in our fact table. Our dimensions can show us the various dimensions or aspects or attributes of that. They give context and specific meaning to our facts. Now, the term dimension, if you hear somebody talk about a dimension, they usually mean an entire table of related dimensions. And I'll certainly show you that a little bit later on. Here's an example. I've got a fact table that contains the number of products sold. And so our fact table, right, may have 10,000 rows of numbers of products sold. One row has one number. A date dimension table will join to that through keys. I'll explain that later and you'll see it. And it will contain a number of individual dimensions or slices, if you will, or variations on the date pertaining to the number of products sold. For example, I can pull just on the date and time, right? 11/17/2011, and the sale happened at 10:15 and 32 seconds. Or I could pull just the quarter. And if I extracted just the quarter from that date, right, it's in the fourth quarter. What if I looked for the day of year? Well, November 17th is on day 321 of the year 2011. The weekday, that was on a Thursday, and so I could pull that. The week, it was the 44th week. Now, does it affect me if I look historically over the last 5 or 6 years and realize the 44th week of the year has been our biggest year? For whatever reason, this is when our customers begin to buy, or this is their big week. It could have to do with the industry. It could have to do with the economy of where our business is located. It could be all kinds of things. But if that's the case, we want to stock up, have extra people on hand. We want to be ready to go to move some product the 44th week of the year. And this can just go on and on, right? Well, when you're dealing with dimensions, each individual column in a dimension table really becomes kind of an attribute that we can use to describe or to further define that fact or that number that's being pulled from the fact table, right? And the attributes will generally compress or expand the level of detail that we can see on that data. Now keep in mind, data can be discretized or discretized into smaller summarized groups. Think about this. We have a date out there, right? 11/17/2011 at 10:35. Well, do we want to see our data split up into days? Because if I'm trying to do a graph of an entire year based on days, I'm going to have 365 bars in my graph. That might be a little overwhelming. It also might make the graph hard to read or too large. What if I divided that into 52 weeks? If I report that in weeks, I've discretized that into data that still has value, because I can know by looking at every one of those weeks, I have roughly 7 days in each one, and I can still see the effects or the curve of my sales figures over a year. Or I could drop it down into 12 months and just see 12 values. Or I could go by quarters and only see 4 values or 4 bars in my chart. Notice how I'm looking at the same data, but by discretizing this or putting it into smaller subdivisions, it still maintains the meaning. It just gives me kind of a higher level view of what's going on with my data. Now, the data can also be drilled into for more detailed information. Let's say I'm looking at it by quarter or by daily. Let's say I've got 365 bars, but I want to go even deeper. If I have the proper level of detail captured in my data, in my facts, I can go down to the hour of the day. And so I can see, if we do sales 24 hours, I can see 24 bars for every one day. If we do sales we capture data for 10 hours, then we'll have 10 bars for every day. I can do the minute of the hour, so I can have 60 bars for every hour. 60 bars on a 10-hour day, I would have 600 bars. We can do seconds. We can do milliseconds. We can just keep going, and we can drill in, again, provided we have that granularity built into the data that is in our database. Let's go back to right here. I want to make sure I was at the end. So dimensions are what we are going to use to join to the fact table to show us a good description of our data. Okay? And so when we sum or when we count based on this, we're going to look at the same data sliced and diced, if you will, in different forms, and based on how we want to see it, it can show us different trends to help us with all kind of aspects of our business. So that's what dimensions do. Now in part 2, I'm going to show you a fact table and a dimension and the relationship between those, and hopefully the light's going to keep coming on, flickering a little bit, stay on a little longer each time before it flickers, and finally stay on and stay bright. Okay, so anyway, that's understanding dimensions part 1. I'll see you in part 2.